It's a quiet but steady exodus, one that tells a deeper story about a nation in economic flux. Across the Tasman Sea, flights from Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch are increasingly full, not with tourists but with New Zealanders chasing opportunity. For tens of thousands of Kiwis, the dream of stability now lies across the ditch, in Australia, where wages are higher, costs are lower, and prospects seem brighter. In 2025, this movement has reached record-breaking levels. Stats NZ data reveals that nearly 73,900 New Zealand citizens left the country in the year to August, an all-time high surpassing the previous record of 73,300. What's more, 58% of them headed to Australia, a nation that has long been both rival and refuge. The pattern isn't new, but the scale and urgency are. Behind every statistic lies a story of families divided, careers reimagined, and a growing sense that New Zealand's once stable economy is faltering. The economic gap between Australia and New Zealand has widened in recent years. According to World Bank data, Australia's GDP per capita sits at roughly $64,400, while New Zealand's hovers near $48,000, a gap of more than 30%. The disparity trickles down into everyday life: wages, housing affordability, and even grocery bills. For workers like Hayden Fisher, a 24-year-old who left Wellington for Sydney in 2024, the difference was immediate. Back home, he was struggling to cover basic expenses, often using buy now pay later services just to buy groceries. In Australia, working a similar job in retail, his food costs dropped by half, and saving money became possible for the first time. This experience isn't unique. Many middle-class and working New Zealanders are finding that the same job in Australia can pay 30 to 80% more, with added benefits such as cheaper fresh produce, lower income tax rates for middle earners, and greater public investment in infrastructure and services. New Zealand's migration flow has always leaned toward Australia, but 2024 to 2025 saw a sharp acceleration. Stats NZ recorded a net migration loss of 30,000 people to Australia in 2024, the highest in over a decade. Economists describe this as both a symptom and a signal, evidence of domestic economic weakness and falling confidence in the local job market. Professor Alan Gamlen, director of the Migration Hub at the Australian National University, points out that while emigration to Australia has been a constant since the 1970s, this recent wave reflects structural issues. New Zealand's economy, highly dependent on agriculture and tourism, remains vulnerable to global shocks. The lingering after effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, inflationary pressures, and high interest rates have all combined to create an economic downturn that the small island nation feels more acutely than its larger neighbour. Gamlen adds that this migration pattern, commonly dubbed brain drain, might be more accurately described as brain exchange. Many New Zealanders who leave return years later with international experience, savings, and global connections that can benefit the domestic economy. Still, in the short term, the exodus of skilled professionals poses serious challenges, particularly for sectors like healthcare, education, and engineering. The exodus isn't limited to any one demographic. It's a generational cross-section of New Zealand society: young graduates, skilled tradespeople, and even families with small children. From Australia's perspective, the inflow of Kiwis is a welcome development. Economists estimate that around 80% of New Zealand's diaspora now live in major Australian cities, with concentrations in Brisbane, 21.4%, the Gold Coast, 15.9%, Melbourne, 19.3%, and Sydney, 17.4%. Smaller but significant communities exist in Western Australia and South Australia, particularly in mining and resource hubs. New Zealanders make up one of the most integrated migrant groups in Australia. They are eligible to live and work without visas under the Trans-Tasman Travel Arrangement, And since 2023, they have also regained easier pathways to Australian citizenship, a move that reversed years of restrictive immigration policy. For Australia, these migrants are a net fiscal positive. They contribute more in taxes than they consume in welfare or services, according to ANU's Migration Hub. They also help plug chronic labour shortages in healthcare, construction, hospitality, and aged care, industries facing demand surges due to an ageing population and rapid urban growth. Yet for New Zealand, this migration wave comes at a steep cost. With 1 in 6 tertiary educated citizens now living abroad, policymakers warn of a deepening skills shortage. Hospitals in regional areas report vacancies in critical care and nursing roles, while construction firms face labour deficits that threaten to delay key housing projects. Economically, the outflow reduces consumer demand and productivity growth. Socially, it fuels a sense of pessimism among those who stay behind. The term hollowing out has become a common descriptor for cities like Wellington and Dunedin, where young professionals once formed the backbone of civic life. The government's challenge is multifaceted: revive the economy, address the housing crisis, and make domestic wages competitive again. Yet with rising global costs, a shrinking tax base, and slow productivity growth, the path forward looks uncertain. For many migrants now settled in Australia, the idea of returning home feels remote. Hayden Fisher, now living comfortably in Sydney, says it would take major policy changes in housing and education for him to even consider moving back. Fulton echoes the sentiment, noting that while New Zealand remains beautiful, mountains can't pay the rent. Despite the nostalgia many feel for the land they left behind, few regret their decision. The story of 2025's Great Kiwi Exodus is one of the hard choices made in search of stability and dignity. It reflects not just an economic imbalance between two close neighbours, but a growing divide between aspiration and affordability in New Zealand itself. As planes continue to cross the Tasman each day, carrying more of New Zealand's talent abroad, the question remains: can the country reverse the tide, or has Australia permanently become the new land of promise for Kiwis seeking a better life?